Welcome, one and all. I'm glad you're back for episode number 17 of Thoughts and Hunches, making money in bunches and sucker punches. Your boy Stony back with you for another round. Happy New Year to one and all. Last time I was with you was New Year's Eve, so we want to wish you all a very prosperous and a very good 2021, and it can be very profitable. And it all starts here. Plain and simple. New Year's Day, I went up to Caesars, Southern Indiana. There's a Caesars about 2 hours and 50 minutes from here, right outside of downtown Louisville. And hit it up, was there on New Year's Day, betting like a fiend, getting after it with all the scumbags. And it was great. It was absolutely awesome. Made some money. Went 3-1 in the bowl games, as you already know, because I don't lose NCAA football bowl games. Just doesn't happen. And the only loss happened to be a backdoor mistake by a 15-yard penalty by Nick Saban to give Notre Dame the back door, which cost me a 4-0 day on Friday. But Saturday we turned it around again, another 3-1 day. We'll get to all the numbers. It was great. Good times. Made some money, left with money, and actually came home with 2 winning tickets that I have that I can go back to cash in when I head back up there for March Madness, which is only about 9-10 weeks away. So it's right around the corner. So don't get too calm in yourself, because we got to keep the rubber band stretched tight right up until that first Monday in April. So anyway, I'd like to welcome all of my fellow scumbags, hustlers, lowlifes, hoodlums, fienders, degenerates, all you freaking lowlifes. That you guys are back because you can't get enough of me with my documented picks. They come every single week, and I never fail to disappoint. I've had one losing week out of the 17 that I've given you. Last week wasn't the greatest week in the world, but we still managed to come out with a little bit of profit. Right? It wasn't bad. 14, 11, and 1. We'll take it, considering we had a miserable New Year's Day in college basketball. But we bounced back with our football picks and actually turned it into a profitable weekend. So we'll take it, 14, 11, and 1. That's not bad. That leaves us at 182 wins, 124 losses, and 5 ties. That's 59.48%, just under 60%. The goal is to get over 60, obviously, but 59, I mean, anything over 56 is great. So we'll take it, and we'll just keep plugging along. Now, here's the thing. Normally what we do is we give you, what I do is I give you the picks in order by basketball, followed by football. But this week we're going to switch things up a little. Why not? Because we got a lot of college basketball games to get to, and I'll get to those on the back end. But I'm going to start right now because we got football tomorrow, and we got NFL the first day of back-to-back triple headers for the NFL in the playoffs. So ignore the faux beard here. It's an experiment gone awry, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. We move on. NFL. Last week, NFL Week 17, the final week of the season, we turned it up. We actually had a pretty good week. And it was exactly what we needed. It was 7-4-1. We'll take it. That ended the regular season at 63 wins, 50 losses, and 3 ties, for a season high of 55.75%. Now, if you've been following our picks, NFL is always our weak link. But to finish over 55%, damn near 56%, hey, that's solid. We will take that every single year. That's the regular season. But now, it's a different season. And here's the thing. When you're handicapping playoff games, you have to understand these lines are the sharpest that they've been all season. The odds makers and the sharps down in Las Vegas, they all know exactly what they're doing, and these numbers are right exactly where they need to be. So don't look at something and say, hey, that's an easy one. There are no easy ones in the playoffs. These numbers are right on it. So, with that in mind, here we go. We're going to bet all 6 games and all 6 totals and give you our analysis on all of them. So we start tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, Indianapolis, Buffalo. Okay? Buffalo is the trendy pick to win the Super Bowl now. A lot of people are picking them because of the way that Kansas City kind of ho-hummed their way through the second half of the season, and the way that Buffalo really put the hammer down and started burying teams on the back end of their schedule to take the NFC East. Well, Indianapolis, over the last 4 or 5 weeks, very quietly has found a running game. They found a way to get Jonathan Taylor involved. They've got one of the best battlers of all time at Phillip Rivers. And their defense, while is questionable, they can get pressure on the quarterback. So Josh Allen's not going to have all day in the world to sit back there and just survey the field. Now, Buffalo comes in as obviously the favorite. They're 6.5 point chalk, and they're going to have some fans up there in Orchard Park, thanks to the Honorable Governor Cuomo up in New York. And we like the Colts, plain and simple. I'm going to roll with the Colts. The Colts are the smart pick here at 6.5, right? Because of their ability to run the ball. Maybe they'll be able to keep Josh Allen and the offense off the field, that big play offense with Stephon Diggs. We like the way Indy's playing, and I don't see a blowout here. I see Buffalo winning. Don't get me wrong. I certainly see Buffalo winning, but I see Indy doing enough to not only cover, but possibly catching the back door. So take the 6.5 Colts. There's game 1. Also in that game, we're going to take the over. Both teams can score. Yes, it's going to be cold, snow flurries, whatever. It's brutally cold up there. We know that. It's that brutal time of year. But Indianapolis is used to cold weather, right? Not playing in it, dome, but they're used to the weather being cold. Now, both teams can score. Like we said, Indianapolis can run the ball. Indianapolis can throw the ball. Buffalo can throw the ball. Buffalo doesn't really run the ball that well, but they're sneaky good. And Buffalo scores, period. So both teams score. 51.5 just seems like an awfully low number. Can both teams get into the 30s? It's possible. But we see this game more along the lines of 30-27, somewhere like that. And doesn't matter who wins. 30-27 means it's San Diego in the over. Sorry, San Diego. Indianapolis. See, Phillip Rivers. I got Phillip Rivers on my mind. After last week's 3-time blunder, if I kept referring to Ohio State as Oregon State, there's my first blunder this week. Anyway, Indianapolis plus 6.5 and over 51.5. Game 2 on Saturday. Seattle and the Rams meet for the 3rd time, and they split during the regular season. The big story all week is obviously the health of Jared Goff, whether he's going to play. The line has moved all over the place. Nobody really knows. Sean McVay, as what I've heard him referred to this week, hasn't told anybody who he's going to play, whether it's going to be Jared Goff or Wolford. And either way, I like Seattle here, pure and simple. Seattle is at home. Seattle won the West, and this is the time of year that Russell Wilson is the most comfortable. He plays well in January. He always has. And there's no reason to think why that won't continue tomorrow. So we're going to take Seattle -3. The total's 42.5. We're going to roll with the under. Seattle and the Rams, both their teams, the last handful of weeks, the under have been popular plays, and for good reason. They've been coming through. This is going to be a very low-scoring game. I see this one 16-10, 20-13, somewhere around there. It's going under the total. It's going way under the total. That's your lock of the week right there. Seattle Rams under 41.5. 42.5. So 42.5, we're going to take the under and just, roll up with that one. So There's your first two, and then the nightcap on Saturday night is Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks going to Washington to play the Washington. I still find it hard to call them the football club, but anyway, the Washington Football Club. And the reason is because Washington won the East. At 6-10, we all know how bad the NFC East was. It was absolutely miserable this year. There's nothing really looking all that positive for Washington, especially offensively, with Alex Smith getting the start, and even he's banged up. That's the best they can do. That's fine. Alex Smith is fine. He's a game manager. We've been hearing that for 20 years. But Washington always seems to do enough and stay close. You want to know why? It's a number 2 rated defense in the NFL. This defense is coming, and they're coming for Brady, and they're going to make things difficult on him. Now, Chase Young called out Tom Brady, said, I want Tom Brady, bring him on. Oh, there's bulletin board material. Tom Brady does not need bulletin board material in January. He never has. He's not going to use that as any extra fuel. Tom Brady's going to come out and he's going to silently pick apart this defense, and he's going to lead them to a relatively easy win. Tampa Bay wins, and wins pretty easily, and covers the 7.5 in our nation's capital. The total's 44.5. We have no choice but to take the under here, because Washington's defense is that damn good, and Tampa Bay's defense, while it struggled down the stretch, definitely had a very good start to the season. So we're going to take this game under, see it somewhere around 27-10 or 23-10, somewhere around there. Washington won't score a lot. They'll keep it close, but Tampa Bay will pull away in the second half and cover and get the under. So Tampa Bay and the under. So there's your 6 plays for all 3 games on Saturday. You move on to Sunday, and you got 3 more really good ones. And the first one is right here in my backyard, about 10 minutes away. And it's the only home team that is an underdog this week, and that's Tennessee and Baltimore. Baltimore's a 3.5-point favorite, and as well they should be. If anybody's been paying attention, Baltimore very quietly has gone about their business the last 4 or 5 weeks, and it's absolutely hammering teams. They're dropping 40s on everybody, and Lamar Jackson seemed to have found his groove. They're running the ball, they're throwing the ball, they got everything working, and it's a John Harbaugh team. So you know it's a good defense. Their 5th-ranked defense is as good as anyone's. So they're coming in hot, and they're coming in as a favorite, and they deserve to be the favorite. But we're going to take Tennessee, because Tennessee is going to scare the shit out of this defense, because that's what Tennessee does. Tennessee scares the shit out of everybody's defense. Now, the Titans' defense is awful. We know this, right? Baltimore could score into the 40s very easily, but so can Tennessee. Doesn't matter how good the defense is they're facing, Tennessee's going to score. So King Henry's going to run the ball. Tannehill's going to throw the ball to his bevy of receivers, and that offense is going to keep moving. So we're expecting a good one here in Nashville on Sunday. But we're going to take the Titans at 3.5. Call us a homer pick or whatever, but we like the Titans plus 3.5. We also like the over 54.5, because like I just said, can both teams score 40? Sure. Both teams will score into the 30s. So that's all you need for the over. 54.5 just doesn't sound right. It's going to be cold here. It's tomorrow the temperature is going to be in the 30s, and it might be mid to high 30s by game time on Sunday morning. So it's going to be cold. No snow, but it will absolutely be cold. Doesn't matter. 54.5. Take the over. Sunday afternoon, Chicago and New Orleans in the Big Easy. Dome, sweet dome, says New Orleans. Here's the problem with the Saints. The only problem with the Saints. Because they're healthy. Michael Taylor, Drew Brees, they're all back. They're all healthy, and they're ready to make a run at a Super Bowl. And they got a very good defense, a very underrated defense, and Alvin Kamara is running the hell out of the ball right now. So there's no reason not to take New Orleans, right? Well, the last 3 playoffs, New Orleans has lost on the last play of the game in excruciating fashion. a couple times. One of them was the bogus pass interference call 2 years ago against the Rams, where everybody saw pass interference except for the referees on the field. And it led to the Rams winning and ultimately going to the Super Bowl where they lost. But New Orleans seems to find a way to lose. Now, I'm not saying they're going to lose tomorrow or Sunday. Don't get me wrong. The Bears are certainly not going to go in and beat the Saints in the Big Easy. But Mitch Trubisky has this team rolling right now. That offense, Montgomery's running the ball. Trubisky seemed to have taken everything to heart after the benching, and it's worked for him. So he's playing well, and we see Chicago keeping it close, possibly even sliding in the back door. 10 points is an awful lot of points, and we're going to take every single one of them. Bears plus 10. Finally, also in that game, we're going to take the over, 47.5. Again, both defenses are good. We know this, but both offenses right now. With the Bears, the last 5 weeks since Trubisky came back into the lineup and has got the offense moving, it's hard to take the under in the Dome because the Saints can easily rattle off 40. I don't see them getting that high, but 34-24 will absolutely do for me. 34-25 will be even better because that means the Bears covered. So take the Bears, take the over 47.5, which seems a little low. So there's your both plays for Chicago, New Orleans. Finally, the last NFL game of wild card weekend is Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Rematch of last week. They just met. Pittsburgh benched all their players because they had nothing to play for. Cleveland had everything to play for, and Pittsburgh still almost beat them. They still almost came from behind and knocked them off. So what happened was Pittsburgh saw everything that Cleveland did. They know everything Cleveland can do. And here's the bottom line. 17 straight wins by Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh over Cleveland. Enough said. Lay the 6. Pittsburgh's only a 6-point favorite. Cleveland's without Kevin Stefanski, their head coach. He's got COVID. A guard has COVID. A corner has COVID. They're a mess right now. To have them go into Pittsburgh at full strength and give the Steelers a game is going to be tough. The only reason why this game is 6 is because some of the question marks about how Pittsburgh ended the season not really playing that well. But you give Ben a week off and Tomlin a week to prepare, 2 weeks to prepare basically. It's looking like a Steeler blowout. Under 47.5 is what we're going to play. I don't see Cleveland really doing much. They're certainly not going to hit 20. I see 27-13, somewhere around there. Pittsburgh basically having its way with Cleveland like they've done over time, over history. You got to keep taking that, when 17 straight at home. The numbers are 12-5 against the spread, but I'll take that too. So Steelers, -6, under 47.5. There's all 12 of your NFL plays for the weekend. Let's hit them. Hit them hard, okay? We move on to NCAA football. Now, here's the deal. NCAA football, especially during bowl season, I explained this to you last week, gets difficult because you don't know which teams are going to show up during bowl season because some teams want to be there and some teams don't. There were a couple instances where I gave you my pick on New Year's Eve, but then by the time the game rolled around, the line had swung so much that I bet the other way because of injuries and players opting out and COVID and whatever, right? Whatever the reasons were. If a line moves more than 2 points here, from the number I'm giving you, if a line moves more than 2 points, don't play it, period. I'd even say if a line moves more than 1.5. It really happened in my college basketball picks last week. There were 3 games. I gave you point spreads and the lines moved so much that I didn't even bet them. In one instance, I went the other way and won, right? The other one, instead of betting the favorite, which I gave you at 4, it went off at 7. I didn't do it. I bet the money line and it hit that while I was up at Caesars. So these point spreads, again, now, For this one, it's different. This is the national championship. This is the last game. Last week we managed to go 6-2 because that's what I'm going to give you. Even though I personally went 7-1 because by the time games rolled around on Sunday, it was like there's no way I'm betting this game. Hello Texas A&M against Carolina. It was like, oh my God, what is North Carolina doing? So leading up to that game, I liked Carolina all week. By the time the game went off, I gave it to you at 7. By the time the game went off, it went off at 10, right? And I still took A&M, and they rolled easily. So 6-2 is what we did last week. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. I personally went 7-1, but for the purpose of these picks here, we went 6-2 last week, giving us a grand total of 15-10 in bowl games. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad at all. 15-10 in bowls. And for the season in college football, we're 87, 55-1. That's 61%. Doesn't get any better than that. All right. Well, this is it. Last game of the season. It's not a bowl game. This is the national championship. This is for all the marbles. We saw what Alabama did to Notre Dame. They were up by so much that Nick Saban gave a big middle finger and an FU to all of us Alabama backers coming down the stretch because he proved he doesn't care about the point spread and allowed Notre Dame to sneak in the back door there. And even I got it at 18, even though a lot of books were laying 20. I got it at 18, figured I was in good shape. That last touchdown made it land on 17. Ruined a perfect day for me. But either way, we saw Alabama's firepower, and now they're getting Waddle back at wide receiver a couple days after Devontae just won the Heisman. Mac Jones is healthy. Najee Harris is hurdling people and not breaking stride. This offense is an absolute juggernaut right now. But they're going to have to be because we saw what Ohio State did to Clemson. I warned you in my picks last week. I didn't think Ohio State was going to make mincemeat out of Clemson, but I did say that we hadn't seen the best of Ohio State yet. Well, we saw it last week. And they did it defensively. They pressured Trevor Lawrence. They took Travis Etienne out of the game, and Trevor Lawrence was flustered the entire game. Offensively, Fields was moving the ball. Sermon was a beast on the ground, and that's what they're going to have to do again on Monday night against Alabama. The point spread right now is sitting at 7.5, where it's kind of been all week between 7 and 8. That hook makes a huge difference. We're going to take the hook. We're going to take Ohio State, and we're going to think that Sermon can run the ball, and Fields can run the ball, and Fields can throw the ball just enough to sustain a few long drives to keep Alabama's offense off the field. Right? Because when Alabama gets the ball, they're going to go down and they're going to score. We know that. Ohio State has the defense. Alabama's defense has played well the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks, except for the Florida game in the SEC Championship. They've looked really well. They've played really well down the stretch. They're going to have to be playing very well on Monday night because Ryan Day is a hell of a coach. And he's got time to prepare for this, and this is for all the marbles, and this is going to be a big middle finger for Ohio State to everybody who thought that they didn't even belong in the college football playoffs because they only played 6 games. Well, now they're 7-0. They can finish the season 8-0 and with a national championship on their belt. Don't necessarily think they're going to win. I don't necessarily see a close game. I see Alabama winning. But 7.5 is a lot of points to give a dangerous Ohio State team. We're going to take Ohio State and the 7.5. As far as the total goes, it's 75.5. Can't do it. I can't pull the trigger on that over. I just can't. A friend of mine texted me the other day, and he said there's no way I would ever bet over 75.5. I just can't do it. I did once before. I think it was at 80 or 81, and I bet the over. This was when Marcus Mariota was cruising at Oregon, and Mike Leach had Washington State, and God, who was their quarterback? Luke can't remember his name, Luke Falk, and they were putting up just massive numbers, and the final score was like 49-45 or something like that, and it did go over, and the total was 81. Not going to happen this time. I just don't see it. I see Ohio State, like I said, using Sermon and Fields to grind out the clock and to extend drives and to keep Mac Jones and that high-powered Alabama offense off the field long enough to keep it under. It still might hit 70, but, I mean, what's wrong with a 37-33 final score? I mean, look at it like this. If Alabama wins, or if either team wins the game, 40-30, that's an under. 40-30, and that's an under. So we're going to take the under 75.5. We're going to take Ohio State plus 7.5, under 75.5. Those are your two picks for National Championship Monday. And the final game, tears in the eyes. No more college football until August. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. Well, I know what I'm going to do with myself. I'm going to bet on college basketball. Tomorrow is a Saturday in January like none other. They all are. Saturdays in January and February and early March are the best for college basketball. There's so many big games, big matchups. Again, here's the thing. I have to warn you about point spreads. I'm giving them to you a whole day early. By the time tip-off goes, if these point spreads are more than 1.5 to 2 points off, stay away. Back off. Move. Don't even play the game, right? I'm going with what the numbers are right now in Las Vegas for the games that tip off on Saturday. Another thing, we don't necessarily have a true degenerate special. I'm going to give you who I like in the last lined game on the board. Forgive me for that. I'm going to have I'm going to give you the Oregon-Utah game, which is the last game on the board with a line on it. There's actually one more game after that, but there's no number on it yet. There will be tomorrow. But for purposes of this show, that one will be the degenerate special for late Saturday night. Because you got 3 NFL games with totals and a whole bevy of college basketball games here. So here we go. Let's start with college hoops. We're going to run through them quickly. Auburn, Alabama, one of the great matchups. Alabama has won 4. Alabama's lost 3. Bama's the smart pick. We're going to take Auburn plus 4.5. They're at home in the on the Plains. Alabama is hot and they're playing well. And they handed Tennessee their only loss of the season last week. But then they bounced back and didn't play so well, although it was a win. Auburn's lost 3 in a row, but 95% of the time, Bruce Pearl's going to get 4.5. I'm going to take the points. I'm going to take Auburn plus 4.5. Next up, Richmond and George Mason. Good old-fashioned A-10 matchup. I like Richmond. Richmond's playing really well. They lost to St. Bonaventure, but they bounced right back with a win over Rhode Island this last week. And they're looking good. They're playing well inside and out, and they have a very deep team that runs 10 deep. They're up against the Mason team that just hasn't found their way. They've lost 3 out of 4, and even though Mason's at home, college basketball right now doesn't really have a true home court advantage, so we're going to take the Spiders and lay the 5.5 on the road. Next up, we've got the U against NC State. Now, NC State has been kind of our darling this year. I've taken NC State 4 straight games, or taken them or gone against them, and I've hit all 4. I seem to have a good handle on what NC State's doing, and they're doing a really good job. But the U right now is just going through a tough spot, and the reason it's a tough spot is because they've lost 3 straight games by a grand total of only 5 points, right? They've had all 3 of those games in their paws. They missed free throws. They turned the ball over. When you lose 3 games by a grand total of 5 points, that means you're in it. If they're in it again, down to the wire, we'll take it. So we'll take 6.5 and the Canes at NC State. West Virginia versus Texas. Big matchup in the Big 12. Right now, the Big 10 is the best conference in the land. The second best conference is probably a tie between the Big 12 and the Big East. there's a lot of good basketball being played right now. And West Virginia and Texas are two of the best. Texas went into Allen Fieldhouse the other night and just absolutely throttled Kansas, giving them their second worst loss at home ever. That doesn't happen, right? Well, Texas is still cruising. They're 9-1. They've moved all the way up, I believe, to number 5 in the polls, and for good reason. West Virginia is Huggy, period. I mean, Huggy versus Shaka, right? This is a great matchup. These are two good coaches, but Bob Huggins right now, this defense, the 93 feet full court pressure defense, seems to always get it done. They lost to Kansas, but they bounced back with a nice win over OU. And the loss to Kansas was more of Kansas really, really being upset after the Texas loss. And Oklahoma is a good basketball team, but or no, I'm sorry, was it OU or was it OSU? I thought it was OSU. Yeah, it was OSU. It was Oklahoma State. They came back from 18 down in the first half, and West Virginia beat them the other day. So we're going to take the Mountaineers plus 1.5. They're at home in Morgantown. Texas is 9-1 and cruising, and they're playing really good ball. But this is the Big 12, and they're going to have their share of losses by the time March rolls around, and they're going to get one tomorrow. West Virginia outright, plus 1.5. Next up, we've got Tennessee versus A&M down in College Station. Tennessee's 9.5-point favorites. We're going to take Tennessee, lay the 9.5. A&M really hasn't found their way. Yeah, they're 6-3, but if you look at their ledger, they haven't beaten anybody. UT has the one loss to Alabama last week, and it was a head-scratching loss because they should have taken care of Alabama, but they bounced back with a nice win over Arkansas, over a good Arkansas team. And Tennessee is probably the best team in the SEC this year, and we're going to lay the 9.5 on the road. Next up, TCU versus Baylor. Number 2 ranked Baylor Bears are 10-0 and cruising. Haven't gotten a handle on them yet. If I take them, they fail to cover. If I bet against them, they win by 30. I can't get a handle on the Bears, but I'm going to take TCU plus 12.5. They won 5 in a row. TCU did until they lost to Kansas, but TCU is 12.5 points at home against Baylor. We like the Frogs, and we're going to take the Frogs, and we're going to take all those points. And hopefully they can keep it down inside of 10. Good old-fashioned Big East matchup, UConn versus Butler. Butler's not an old-school Big East franchise, but Butler is Butler. They've certainly cut their teeth in the Big East the last couple of years, and they've done a great job. Not this year, though. They're struggling right now. They really haven't found their way. They're 3-5. They can't seem to get anything going. UConn is 5-1. They've won 3 straight, and they're laying 4.5 right now at the Hink. That's Hinkle Fieldhouse, for those of you who don't know what that is, the site of the movie, the championship game in the movie Hoosiers in Indianapolis. Anyway, UConn minus 4.5 at Butler. Book it. Next up, Texas Tech minus 6.5 against Iowa State at Iowa State. We're going to take Texas Tech. Texas Tech, they get after it defensively. They really do. And they just wind you up and they get you into serious trouble. They've won 3 out of 4. They're 9-3. They're moving along. TCU is another one of those Big 12 schools that is going to be in the hunt down the stretch with Kansas and West Virginia and Texas and all these other schools that are playing, even Oklahoma, all these schools that are playing really good ball. Iowa State, not yet. Iowa State's 2-6. They've lost 3 out of 4. They're in trouble. Tomorrow, Texas Tech's going to drop the hammer on them. Lock of the day, college basketball style. Texas Tech minus 6.5. Back to the SEC, Florida and Kentucky. Classic matchup. 2 good programs. Kentucky obviously is still struggling. They're 3-6 right now. They've won 2 in a row. That's not a win streak, because a win streak is 3 in a row. But they're 3-6, and they're starting to get their legs under them with all those talented freshmen that Calipari brings in every year. Florida's 5-2, and they're playing without preseason All-American Keontae Johnson, who's now a coach basically because of heart ailment, and but they've managed to play well in his absence. They're 5-2 right now. We're going to lay 4.5 in Gainesville, Florida at home as a short favorite. Florida to win and cover. Off to the Pac-12, Washington State versus Stanford. Stanford, these are two very good teams. Washington State's 9-1, very quietly. Now, granted, they really haven't beaten anybody, but they're playing well in the Pac-12 right now. They've won 3 out of their last 4. They're playing good ball. They're 8.5-point dogs, and they have to go to Stanford, but they're not playing in Stanford because Stanford can't play in Palo Alto because of California legislatures. So this game will be played in Santa Cruz, about an hour down the road from where Stanford's campus is located. And Washington State plus 8.5, we're going to take them, even though Stanford's won 3 out of 4, and they're playing really good ball. De Silva is a beast. He's going to be out at Stanford this year. He'll be in the NBA next year. This kid can play. But Stanford wins, and wins pretty easily, but 8.5's an awful lot of number to lay to a 9-1 team right now. So we're going to take the Cougs plus 8.5. Next up, here's your classic Big East matchup from back in the day, although one of them is now in the ACC. How about Syracuse-Georgetown? How about Jim Boeheim versus John Thompson? Yeah, we know Thompson's gone. Rest in peace, John. I should have a towel. Here we go. In John Thompson's honor. Rest in peace, John Thompson. Anyway, Patrick Ewing's taken over, and the one thing Patrick Ewing hasn't gotten across to his Hoyas is defense. They're not playing well. We know that Jim Boeheim's going to bring that zone, and he's going to cause havoc for a Georgetown team that doesn't shoot very well. Syracuse 10.5-point favorites. We're going to lay every single one of them, and Syracuse wins easily and hammers Georgetown. So lay the 10.5. Last 2 games on the board. We're going to take UCLA plus 3.5 against Arizona. UCLA just had a really tight game against ASU the other night. Bobby Hurley's doing a great job in Tempe. Now it's off to face Sean Miller in the Desert Two-Step. And UCLA is undefeated. Mick Cronin are undefeated in conference. They've won 3 straight, and they're 3.5-point dogs. Now, this game could come down to a buzzer beater. Arizona just lost to USC, and the last thing in the world they want is to lose to both LA schools coming in there. And so they're going to be on point. But the way UCLA is playing right now, even without Chris Smith, we see what they're doing. Tiger Campbell's playing well, Jaime Jaquez, and the big men down low. UCLA really looks good. We're going to take the 3.5. And finally, degenerate special for Saturday night. Utah versus Oregon at the Huntsman Center in Salt Lake. We are going to take Oregon minus 3.5. We're going to lay the points. The Ducks have the only loss to Colorado in conference. They're 8-2. They were one of the preseason favorites, along with UCLA and USC, to contend for the top. But the Pac-12 is going to be pretty competitive at the top. Now, they're not going to have a top 5 team, but the Pac-12 is going to have plenty of teams reaching the tournament come March, and Oregon's going to be one of them. We're going to lay 3.5. We still think Utah, in classic Larry Kristoviak fashion, will get it together and play well down the stretch. They always do, and they might even be a surprise team to make the tournament. But right now, they've lost 2 straight to both LA schools. They're 4-3. And they haven't really got it together yet, but Christo will get them together, but not tomorrow. Oregon's going to go in there and beat them by 4 or more. So there it is. There's your plays. Good. I didn't even add them up. Let's see. 12 NFL plays, 2 college football, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 college basketball plays. All right? So that's a grand total of 27 plays for the week. We'll take 15 wins. 15 and 12 is a winning week. Anything over 15 is just cherry on top of the sundae. Let's hit them hard. Final NCAA football game until August. NFL wildcard weekend. The games are just going down. Everything gets cut in half from here on out. 4 games next week, 2 games the following week, and then the Super Bowl. So that's all that's left. So we're going to have plenty of college basketball to keep you busy for the next couple months. Sorry, I got a little tickle here. So there's the 27 plays for the week. And finally, we're going to do some shout-outs this week. And 2 of my I can't say enough good things about these guys. The first one is to my boy, Vinny B. Vinny B is a true degenerate gambler. When I say degenerates, fienders, low-life scumbags, hustlers, Vinny B fits all of these. Vinny B goes up, hits Reno twice a month, especially during COVID. He loves it. His wife likes to get after it. She likes to play. His wife is a low-life scumbag degenerate. Martha, got love for you. Vinny B, right? Keep it going. Keep representing. Keep doing your thing. And finally, the last one, since I still don't really give out a lot of names, this guy doesn't really have a nickname, so I'm just going to call him my brother-in-law. He's technically my ex-brother-in-law, but he's still my brother-in-law. He's my brother. I love him. Let's just call him David Lee Roth, and everybody knows who I'm talking about. Danny, love you, man. Keep listening. Keep going strong. Everybody else out there, have a great week. Have a great new year. If you're going to win big, you got to bet big. And remember the 2 most important things. Number 1, there's money on the streets that can't be ignored. Think about it, and good luck to you.